Hello, if you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Sertica. I'm a physical therapist and I had my right hip replaced in 2009 when I was 19 years old due to a condition known as avascular necrosis, which is essentially bone tissue death due to a lack of blood supply. This was likely caused by long-term corticosteroid use, which was part of the medical treatment for when I had cancer as a teenager. So not only do I understand what you're going through from my education background and working with individuals like you over the years, but I'd like to think that I've walked in a similar pair of shoes. In previous videos, I've discussed my personal history more in depth, provided exercise progressions that can be done at home, showed how I train, and answered some of your questions. In this video, I want to answer 10 of the most common questions that I get about my hip replacement and hip replacements in general. As a quick disclaimer, this video is not a substitution for a consultation with a medical professional. The information that I'm providing also doesn't supersede or take the place of any information that's already been provided to you by your medical doctor or physical therapist. With that out of the way, let's get into the questions. Question number 1, how is my hip doing after 13 years? Well, I'm able to sit in a deep squat, lift weights, and play pickleball without any issues. My normal routine consists of walking my 2 dogs several miles per day, commuting on my bicycle about 30 minutes per day, going to the gym 5 to 6 days per week, and then doing the occasional outdoor activity on the weekends. I'd say that my range of motion, strength, muscle mass, symptoms, and overall function are as good as they've ever been, and my recent checkup showed that everything looks good, so I'm happy with my progress up to this point. Question number 2, what's the best surgical approach and materials to use for the implant? I'm going to keep this answer really simple. There are pros and cons for the different approaches and materials used, but your most important decision is picking an experienced surgeon who you trust. This is their area of expertise, and your surgeon is going to choose the best options for you to increase the likelihood of your success in the short term and long term, because your success is their success. Just like you, they want a positive outcome. For context, because people often ask, my surgeon used a posterior approach, and I have an uncemented metal-on-metal implant, which is actually very uncommon nowadays. And in fact, the exact model was recalled 2 years after the surgery. I bring this up for 2 reasons. 1, people see me doing well and want to know how they can recreate that for themselves, but my advice is not to compare yourself to me. You shouldn't choose your approach or implant based on how I'm doing. 2, if you've already had the surgery, make the best of what you have and only worry about things that are within your control. Like I said, my prosthetic components, the ones still in my body, were recalled, but there's nothing that I can actually do about that, so I don't worry about it. And for clarification, just because they were recalled doesn't mean that they're completely defective. The risk of getting a revision surgery is greater than the risk of keeping what I have. Question number 3, should I see a physical therapist after the surgery? Yes, and this is where I disagree with some surgeons, but I think most would agree with what I'm about to say. So some surgeons do not recommend post-operative rehab because there's research to suggest that on average, it doesn't alter long-term outcomes in a specific set of the population. My issue with the interpretation of this research is that it gets generalized to the entire population and doesn't account for all ages, lifestyles, goals, etc. Let me provide 4 real patient examples to better explain my point of view. Example number 1 was a man in his 60s who saw me prior to his surgery. Despite his surgeon stating that he didn't need to see a physical therapist before or after the surgery, he didn't feel comfortable with the recommendation because he was anxious about the situation. His main goal was to return to doing some of these smaller hikes in Los Angeles. So what did I do as a physical therapist? I provided reassurance, answered all of his questions, provided some basic rehab principles that he could follow and gave him some simple exercises that he could do after the surgery. What happened in the end? I actually never saw him again, but he emailed me a few months later saying that he was back doing all the things that he wanted to do, and he was thankful for that one visit. Example number 2 was another man in his 60s who saw me after his surgery. He was a very active individual who wanted to hike, bike, swim, row, and get back into the gym to do exercises like kettlebell swings. I probably saw him once a week initially, then once every 2 weeks, and then probably once a month until he was 6 months out doing everything that he wanted to do. And once again, all I really did was provide the reassurance and guidance for him to get back to doing the things that he wanted to do and feeling confident in being able to do that. Example number 3 was a woman in her 50s who reached out 2 years after her total hip replacement because she wasn't content with her current level of function. After creating a plan that involved meeting and updating exercises every month, she's stronger, fitter, and healthier than before. And then example number 4 is me. There was no resource for me to watch or read in terms of what I should do as a 19-year-old former athlete. If those surgeons I mentioned envisioned physical therapy as going to an office to perform some basic exercises 2 to 3 times per week for a few months, I completely agree that not everybody needs this type of care. However, I do think a customized approach for every patient is helpful. As you heard from my examples, that might just mean a single visit prior to the surgery or follow-up visits every few months, some time point after the surgery. Question number 4, do I have to follow the post-surgical precautions forever? Absolutely not. Precautions are not always provided because they're dependent on the preference of the surgeon, but if they are provided, make sure to discuss an end date for those precautions with your surgeon. There's no reason you should be fearful of dislocating your hip 6 months out while squatting or doing simple day-to-day tasks. This is actually a good example of why seeing a physical therapist, even for one visit, can help with some of these questions and concerns. Question number 5, what stretches can I do to improve my range of motion? This is a very common question, obviously, but I get asked about it a lot from people who are only a few weeks out from surgery. My advice is to focus on other aspects of your function, like your strength or walking tolerance. Although the surgery is quite successful and only leaves a relatively small scar, it's still an invasive operation that requires significant internal healing that's not visible to our eyes. Early on after the surgery, your range of motion will improve naturally as healing progresses and symptoms begin to subside. If you're forcing your hip into aggravating positions with the intention of improving your range of motion, you might actually be delaying the process a bit. In the long run, your range of motion will likely be better than what it was immediately prior to the surgery. Mine definitely is, but you probably won't be doing the splits, and that's a good thing. The technology is improving so that people with hip replacements can have more range of motion, but there still needs to be a limit to that range of motion so the joint remains stable. Question number 6, what exercises should I avoid? I don't think there's any exercises that inherently needed to be avoided by everyone. Instead, it's about finding exercises and a routine that works well for you. For example, I've learned that I don't respond well to squatting or deadlifting with a barbell because if I try to push myself reasonably hard, I'm limited by pain in my hip as opposed to fatigue in my muscles. Therefore, I've opted for alternatives like split squats or dumbbell RDLs that accomplish similar goals without the discomfort in my hip. It's important to know that there are no special exercises for building muscle, improving strength, or losing weight. You can do body weight movements, you can use machines, you can even use a barbell if it's comfortable for you. I just want you to create a positive experience with the exercises that you're doing rather than using a no pain, no gain mentality. Similarly, I use a higher repetition range, usually 8 or more, for exercises that involve direct weight bearing of my hip because it's more tolerable for me. For my purposes of getting stronger, building muscle, and being healthier, I don't need to max out or push my limits if it means flaring up my hip. It's taken me a while, but I've learned to set my ego aside. If you don't know where to start, find someone who can help you. The benefits of being active far exceed any potential risks. At the very least, regularly walking is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. Question number 7, can I go back to running, high impact activities, and contact sports? Can you do these things? Yes. Here's a list of some activities that I've done over the years: soccer, flag football, basketball, snowboarding, tennis, boxing, wrestling, and much more. And there's people who have had the surgery competing in professional sports. Frankie Edgar, who is 40 years old, competed in a high-ranked UFC event, which is mixed martial arts, 6 to 7 months after his total hip replacement. What you actually want to know, though, is should you go back to doing those things? And that's a much more complicated question to answer. Although surgeons are becoming more relaxed with their recommendations as the technology is improving, I know that some still advise avoiding or minimizing these types of activities. On the other hand, I've heard some physical therapists recommend just doing what you want because the purpose of the surgery is to give you a second chance. I fall somewhere in the middle. I think you need to make an informed decision after considering the potential benefits and risks. The woman in her 50s that I talked about likes to go skiing. The way that she skis is pretty low impact and not too strenuous on the hip, but if she did happen to have a bad fall and break her pelvis or hip, the risk of complications would likely be greater because she does have a total hip replacement. However, that small risk is worth it for her to do one of her favorite activities. That professional fighter has chosen to compete 2 more times because it's his livelihood, he probably enjoys it, and wants to prove to himself that he still can. So is there a risk of immediate injury if you engage in contact sports or activities with the potential for falls? Yes, that's true whether you have a total hip replacement or not, but if you get injured, the consequences are likely more severe. Is there the possibility of needing a revision sooner if you decide to run marathons on a regular basis for the next 10 to 15 years? Yes, but there's no way for us to quantify or calculate the exact risk. When I was in my early 20s, the joy of playing sports and feeling a sense of normalcy far outweighed the potential risk of reducing the longevity of my implant. You might feel the same way. No one can make that decision for you. But I do want to highlight 2 things. 1, I never threw caution to the wind or purposely did things that I knew would cause me significant pain. And 2, I changed my lifestyle a bit and my identity by accepting that I was no longer a competitive athlete, which is not easy to do. Now that I'm in my 30s, I'm happy walking, hiking, cycling, lifting weights, and playing a sport like pickleball that doesn't require as much running, jumping, or cutting. So just to reiterate, can you return to running, high impact activities, and contact sports? Most likely after completing a comprehensive rehab program designed for your specific needs and goals. Should you though? That's highly individualized based on your own risk-reward ratio. It might be worth risking a shorter implant lifespan if you're a marathon runner who lives to run. But that risk might not be worth it for you if you're a recreational runner who doesn't mind switching to another form of exercise like cycling. Question number 8, what's the best way to maximize the lifespan of my total hip replacement? Aside from taking everything I've already discussed into consideration, you just want to live a healthier lifestyle. Not smoking, drinking in moderation, exercising regularly, eating mostly nutritious foods and maintaining a healthy weight, not engaging in overly risky activities, etc. Most things that you probably already know. The better you take care of yourself as a whole, the better off your hip will be, especially after critical periods of healing, like immediately after the initial surgery or after a revision. The risk of infections and other complications is lower in people who are generally healthier. Question number 9, do I worry about having to get a revision? Honestly, I don't. Since I had my hip replaced at the age of 19, I've known that a revision is inevitable. Assuming that I live into my 70s or 80s, it would be unrealistic for me to expect the implant to last 50 or 60 years. It's even possible that I'll need multiple revisions. However, as I mentioned earlier, I try not to worry about things that are out of my control. I've accepted this hand that I've been dealt. I obviously want the initial surgery to last as long as possible, and I'm doing all of the things I just talked about to improve my overall health and hopefully maximize the lifespan of my hip, but it doesn't benefit me to stress about it. Question number 10, can I have a normal sex life? Maybe you'll have some limitations depending on your role and the positions you're trying to partake in, but unless you're trying to do the splits, put your heels over your head, or get into some other extreme ranges of motion, you shouldn't feel too restricted. I think I've had a normal sex life, but my opinion doesn't matter as much as my wife's, so let's see what she thinks. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave any questions or comments down below. Also, I'll link those other videos that I mentioned in the description, as well as a comprehensive blog that I've written and podcasts that I think you'll find extremely helpful. Peace.